Hey there, I'm Selena and welcome back to my channel. This month's video is going to be my monthly wrap up for the month of May, as well as my haul. You know the deal. If you can hear a fan in the background, I apologize. It's summer, okay? Technically it is still spring, but temperature outside, it's summer, okay? And I need the fan, otherwise I will bake in here. But yeah, anyhow, I'm going to start with the haul. I feel like I start with the wrap-up portion first usually. I don't know, but today I'm going to start with the haul. I feel like this month I didn't pick up as much, which I was actually kind of expecting that I was going to pick up a lot, but this is good. This is good. My wallet has gotten a little bit of a break. So yeah, I will go ahead and get started with the haul portion first. First thing that I wanted to show, but it's not, okay, it's a book technically, but it's a journal. Okay, I used to be so into writing. Like I would have so many notebooks, like one for my planner, one for my like art journal. I used to be like super into drawing and just kind of like bullet journaling, but like only like the fun pages. And I did bullet journaling for a little bit, and then I would have notebooks for just writing, and then like a prayer journal. I was huge on writing, and then I just kind of slowed that down, and now I just have my planner, and I feel like I barely write in that anymore, just because I feel like I don't have a lot of like super crazy things to keep track of. I feel like what I have on my plate right now, like I can keep a mental note of it. But I've wanted to start writing again because I feel like with reading and just some of the things that I've been reading lately, like I have a lot that's going on in my mind and just like life things. So I want to get back into writing so that a whole bunch of stuff is not just festering on in my head. And I just really enjoy writing. I feel like I always have. I've never disliked it. There was a time in my life where I disliked reading, which is crazy to me now. But I've always loved writing. So I got a new journal, and this one I found at a local like stationery store, but I actually found it on Amazon the other day. So I will put that link in the description if you are interested in picking one of your own. Next book is a nonfiction. I only got one nonfiction book this month, and this one you might be like, why do you want that? Okay, so this is Ina May's Guide to Childbirth. No, I am not pregnant. No, it's not like even possible for me to, because I am still your single Pringle over here. But okay, if you watch my personal channel, one of my most recent videos is where I got a hope chest, and this is for that. So I was watching a video by Hopewell Heights, and she was going in depth on like her birth story, and she was a nurse, and so she's just kind of very knowledgeable on those kind of things. And she was mentioning to other moms, of course that's her like main demographic of people that watch her channel, but I don't know, here's me, single, no homestead, watching her. But what stuck out to me in that video was that she was like, it's a good idea to pick up books or just do some research on childbirth so that you just know what you like want to do with your birth, like have a game plan. For me, I'm not, okay, you guys don't care about what I'm gonna do in the future with childbirth, okay? But it's just a good idea to be informed. So I'm not gonna read this now. I'm gonna put it away and read it hopefully in the future. I get to read this because, you know, sometimes the midwife doesn't get over to you quick enough, and you need to know what to do in case you end up having to have that baby on your own. So I picked this up for that, kind of, okay. Yeah, anyway, that might be a weird one to some of you. Now we can get into like the fun stuff. I think that's fun, but okay, here's the entertaining stuff. I picked up a few regular comics, which is new for me. It was free comic book day, first Saturday of May, and I went with my dad and I picked up a few that looked interesting, and these 3 are kind of like preview things to Japanese comics. So this is Initial D, which is kind of like a, I think, like car racing, like back alley racing type thing. I could be wrong though, but I've just heard so much about this, like this being a classic manga series. Then we have My Hero Academia, and I guess it has a preview of The Promised Neverland. So I've been meaning to kind of get into My Hero Academia. They did put the anime on Netflix, which I keep saying I'm gonna watch, but I still haven't done it. And this is One Piece Ace's story. I don't know if this is kind of like a side story, if it's not like canon or anything. But yeah, I just picked up these 3. I still have not read them yet. I totally meant to, but I kind of forgot about them until I kind of like looked back at everything that I had to take out for this video. Next, I did pick up some graphic novels, which is also different for me. But this is a series that I've been wanting to pick up for a while because I have watched the TV show and I really, really enjoy it. It's a little heavy on the violence and gore at times, and sometimes I'm just like, I have to look away because it's just, oh, sometimes it makes my stomach a little bit queasy. So yeah, I mean, it's adult animation. It's not, okay, it's not super heavy on like the gross stuff. I always kind of like expect that with adult animation shows. But this one, it replaces that with gore, okay? So yeah, it's not gonna be for everybody, but that series is Invincible. These are new editions, I assume. I've never seen these at all until I found them at a local comic store. I love the covers on these, and they're like just the right size for me, because the other editions are like these kind of like huge like soft covers, so they're like really like inconvenient to read. And then there are other like hardcover editions which are also pretty large, and I don't know, I saw these and I was like, this is perfect for me. So here we have volume 1 with Invincible on the cover, and then volume 2 with Omni-Man, and volume 3 with Adam Eve. So I'm really excited to read these. I'm going to read these very, very soon. I intended to read them this month, but yeah, so you'll be hearing about these next month, hopefully. I did pick up a few volumes of manga as well, starting with volume 2 of Orange. I still do need to pick up the Orange Future, and then I will be done with the entire Orange story, so I picked that up. And then I got volumes 2 and 3 of A Sign of Affection. This is like my new Wotakoi. Like, I love this series so much. I could gush over it day after day. Like, I love this one so much. So I got the next 2. For this haul portion, I'm gonna fly through these because I still have the wrap up to get through, and I have a couple rants that will probably happen. Yeah, so first off, I got Darling Girl by Liz Mikulski. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, but this is a like Peter Pan retelling kind of thing. It deals with like the granddaughter of Wendy Darling, and so we kind of like follow the Darling family kind of after, you know, Peter Pan and everything. So this is like a dark twist on it where, you know, Peter Pan, he's like this fun guy, happy-go-lucky, everything, never grow up, right? But this is like a dark thing where he's the bad guy in this story, and we suspect that he has abducted a girl in the Darling family. Next, we have My Dark Vanessa. This up here says timely, riveting, heartbreaking. This is a very sad book. I will talk about this a little bit more later. And then these next three, I was actually given these by my neighbor slash friend. This is the Book of Lost Names. This is a World War II historical fiction. She knows that I love this type of thing. This is The Giver of Stars by Jojo Moyes. I have seen this author around a lot. I think that she's pretty popular. I've just never read anything of hers, but my friend said that this was really good. This is about like a rural town, I think, in Kentucky, and they're trying to build this library, like female friendship type of thing. And then lastly, which I think this will actually be my next read because I'm kind of really interested in it. This is Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt. I have seen this book everywhere, so I am super interested to see what this is about. I guess this is in the perspective of an octopus, which is interesting. So we shall see if you see this in next month's wrap up. Now for the wrap up portion, I'll go ahead and start with what I watched. I only watched one thing, and that was season 2 of Invincible. Great show. I kind of talked about it in the haul portion. I can't believe that it's gonna be until probably like 2026 that the next season is gonna come out. Yeah, so I watched that. And for music, I found a lot of really good music this month. But for a top 3, I would say Can't Catch Me Now, but a cover from The Fox and the Hound, I'm pretty sure it is. The original is by Olivia Rodrigo, which that version is good, but I just prefer the cover by The Fox and the Hound. And then Better By Now by Heather Little, and A Simple Song by Chris Stapleton. It's just kind of like ramping up into summer. That one just is really like a feel-good song. Now for the books, I feel like I've kind of sped through the first part because I'm just like, this part is gonna take a while, so grab a snack, grab a drink, grab a coffee. I should have grabbed a coffee, but I'm just gonna keep going. I'm gonna start with nonfiction. I read 2 nonfiction books this month. First, I read Thoughts and Prayers from the Front Porch Swing by Deborah Norton. I got to meet this author and she did sign this, and I finally got to reading it, and I wanted to take my time with this and just kind of like have it as a daily thing because it's kind of like very slim, but I ended up just flying through this, and it was great. Like it had me crying and just like journaling because there were a lot of like kind of thoughts and reflections in here that I related to, and so it got me thinking a lot. This book is actually kind of like what really drove me to start writing in that journal that I showed you. So this one was so good. And then next we have The Hidden Art of Homemaking for Edith Schaefer by Edith Schaefer. I bought this book a few months ago and I haven't gotten around to reading it until now. This is another book that I thought that I was gonna put in my hope chest, and I might because now I have read it. But this is a book on creative ideas for enriching everyday life. So how to bring art and creativity into cooking and chores, how to bring music into the home, how to bring storytelling into the home in a fun and enriching way. And this book is, I feel like, more so for families and for mothers, but she also included like single women into this, and women who still live with their families and have like siblings in their lives and things like that. So I found myself kind of like getting so much out of this, even though like I don't have my own household. So this one I highly recommend for literally every single woman, because this covers like basically every single life stage. Next, we have the manga portion. I did read volume 2 of Orange. I feel like there could be more to this story, and maybe that's what Orange Future will be, but overall I really did enjoy the conclusion of the main part of Orange, it made me cry. The first book just had me a mess, but this one just kind of had a more kind of bitter sweet, like sad happy sort of feel to it. So I really enjoy the series, and I'm glad that I finally have experienced the story. I'm excited to pick up Orange Feature because I'm pretty sure that that is in the perspective of this guy right here. Why am I blanking on his name? But anyway, he's kind of like the main guy that we're worried about. So yeah, this one was really, really good. I flew through that one very quickly. And then I read, I'm gonna try to not linger on this too much because, yeah, I read volumes 1 through 3 of A Sign of Affection, and oh my gosh, this series just makes me dumb, okay? It makes me giddy like a middle school girl that has a crush, okay? Like, I get just all squealy and I melt. Like, truly, I melt. These two right here are just, they're too precious for words, okay? And I relate a lot to her in the sense that she's very like, she like observes people around her, and she's just like very shy about things, and she doesn't want to inconvenience people, and she always thinks that she is, but she's not. And so like that part can be like frustrating. It's like, no, you're not being like, you know, you're not bothering anybody. Like, you know, put yourself into that situation and involve yourself there. But just how the other characters in the story come and just like support these two, it's so good. So if you haven't read A Side of Affection or watched the anime and you're interested in this sort of like college romance, definitely read this. I am so excited to continue reading, but I think that this might not be done with its publication, that it might still be ongoing. So I'm gonna try and just like slow it down because I don't want to be left waiting for like months on end for a new volume to come out, because this story just, I get like goosebumps thinking about it. Because anyway, I think I might like this even more than Watakoi because I'm already just like so passionate about this one. Now for the novels. I'm trying to tone it down. I'm like thinking of what happened in those 3 volumes. Okay, anyways. See, this is what happens when I talk about that or when I read it. Like, I was reading volume 3, and if you have read volume 3, you know what happens in volume 3, okay? And I read that and I was just squealing and just like running around the house. My mom was like, what's wrong? I'm like, this book. Okay, anyways, tone it down. We have novels to talk about that are a very different tone than that one, okay? I need to calm it down. All right, first up, I had started this in April, but I was just kind of like slow with it. I was kind of getting into a reading slump, but I saved it and I got back into reading. This is Ordinary Grace by William Kent Kruger. This book here is set in a like small town in Minnesota. Not a lot goes on there, but some shady stuff starts happening. Like 4 deaths take place in the span of this one summer. And the main character is Frank Drum, and he is like an older guy now, and he's kind of like telling the story of what happened in his past in the summer of 1961 when he was 13. So 4 deaths, accident, nature, suicide, and murder. So this was so good. It's really like a story on obviously loss and grief and how different people handle grief. And I think that that was really interesting to read about. I have experienced losing like a family member, but I was younger, like old enough to kind of understand like what was going on and feel the loss, but like not old enough to like, I don't know, like fully dissect those feelings, I feel like. And so this book, I feel like you see the perspective of a 13-year-old, of an 11-year-old, and then like people in their 40s, and then older people as well. So that was really interesting. This kind of turned into like a murder mystery, small town sort of thing, and I absolutely loved it. This book had me just, this ending, oh, thinking about it now, oh my gosh, I'm not gonna cry. The ending of this book was just, it was so good, but it was so sad. But everything wrapped up so well from beginning to end, like such a great story. So it kind of goes without saying, this was a 5-star read, and I am so excited to read everything else by William Kent Kruger. I guess his most popular one is this Tenderland, and I've never really seen it around, so I'm gonna work on getting the rest of his published books, because this one was just absolutely amazing. I loved this book. This next book that I read after Ordinary Grace, I was kind of hesitant on this one because there are two differing opinions. You either absolutely love this story or you think it's cow poop and why does everybody love this? And I was fully prepared to be in this side of things because of how the experience that I had with The Cruel Prince. I was massively let down with that book. I was expecting to be absolutely in love with The Cruel Prince, and so I was just kind of expecting that same thing with this story because it's kind of a similar YA fantasy story. However, this book, oh my gosh, it was so good. And that book is Powerless by Lauren Roberts. And this book, I'm gonna try to not spend too much time on this because so many people talk about this book, but it's for good reason. And okay, this story is only going to work for you if you're the type of person that loves like your typical dystopian fantasy angsty teen type story. It's only gonna work for you if you like that, because I will admit we have heard this story before ish, kind of. It's like the thing where there's this kingdom society where there are people that have powers and there are people with elite powers, and our main girl doesn't have any powers. She's completely ordinary. And the prince, there is an enforcer, Prince Kai. He is the enforcer, and he is the one who goes out to kill all the ordinaries. Okay, the king is like, ordinary should not be among our people. We should not be like, you know, having children with them. Like, let's just blot them out completely. And he's like, okay, I'm gonna go take care of that. He was basically raised to be an assassin, okay? And in this world, there are the trials where a bunch of elites come together and do like a Hunger Games sort of thing. So I picked this up because it was described as sort of a fantasy Hunger Games type story. And if something gets described as the Hunger Games, like something kind of similar to that, I will read it or I will watch it, because we all know how I feel about the Hunger Games, okay? So I picked this one up, and it's all of those things, okay? But to say that it's like the Hunger Games, okay, it's similar in the sense to, it's kind of like all these people get thrown into an arena. But the trials in this world are not necessarily like a fight to the death type of thing. It's more so like a competition, and if people end up being killed because they're like trying to compete for first place, that's completely okay. But it's not like a complete compete to the death sort of thing. What's good about this is that it's also like a romantasy. Like, I would describe this as a dystopian romantasy. Like, definitely emphasis on the romance. Like, this is the type of story that you go into where you want to read about, you know, these two unlikely people that should not be together, that they get forced to like be around each other and they interact and that sort of thing. The thing with these two, Peyton and Kai, Prince Kai, is that for one, Peyton is completely ordinary. Kai is the prince who has elite powers, and he's the one who is sent out to kill ordinaries. So you have that going for them. They are not supposed to be each other. She's not supposed to be alive, but here she is competing in these trials for some reason that I will not disclose to you. So yeah, he's the hunter, she is the hunted. That's what it says back here. Yeah, so you have that going for them, but he doesn't know that she's ordinary. Yeah, the banter in this book, okay, was just so good. This is another one that just had me squealing all the time and just being like, okay, like they're super like just flirty, but they're like upset with themselves that they're like falling for the other person. She's like, no, like why am I like getting involved with him? Like it's just a waste of time, and like I'm ordinary, and he's so annoying but really attractive at the same time, okay? And he's like, okay, I'm here training and my thoughts are drifting to her, but wait, no, why am I thinking of her? Like, stop it, what's wrong with me? It's that sort of thing. And he, for some reason, is like, you know, always walking around training without a shirt, okay? It's pretty typical for like a, you know, angsty teen romantasy type of thing, but it worked so well for me. And the ending of this book is so cruel. It ripped my heart out. I finished reading this like late at night, and I was just sitting there just like so overwhelmed. Like this book, I was prepared to not like it, and I was being super highly critical of it, but by the end I was just sitting there like overwhelmed, and the ending just had me bawling my eyes out. Like, I don't know why. I was literally sitting there like, why is this stupid book making me feel so many things? Because it made me feel like happy, sad for certain characters at certain times, and angry. I was angry a lot. And then at the end, just sad and crying. I was like, I did not expect to cry with this one. And okay, here's me. I was thinking that the other book that's out right now, I think it's called like Powerful. I think it's got like a white cover. Tell me why I thought that that was the second book of this and that it was out already. That's why I started reading this. But no, the second book comes out in July. A moment of silence for me, because as soon as I found that out, I was so mad with myself, because the end of this, it's so good, and it leaves you off on a cliffhanger, and it just rips your heart out. I so badly want them to make a movie of this. It would be interesting though, because of like the powers and everything. But I just imagine, okay, I was shuffling through this playlist that I have, and Wildest Dreams came on by Taylor Swift, and I was just like, this song fits so well with the two of these characters. Like, if they made a movie of Powerless, Wildest Dreams would be playing as like the end credits song, because it fits so well. So now every time that song like comes on or I hear it somewhere, I'm like immediately like my mind drifts to this book and Kai Azar and Peyton Gray. Oh my goodness, they're my new like favorite book couple. I cannot stop thinking about this book and the two of them. All right, I spent way too much time talking on that last one, but get ready for another rant, because the book that I finished after that one was, hold on, I didn't even give a rating for Powerless, but you can guess, okay? 5 stars, 6 out of 5 stars, okay? Anyway, coming back to this one. this is going to be another rant, probably. And I have already filmed an entire video dedicated to this book, but I just don't know if I'm going to put it out there, just because I feel like it was more so for me to just vocalize what I was thinking after reading this book, because I had so much that I thought about, and so many things that just like came up in my mind after reading this book that I just, yeah. So we'll see if that video ever goes up, but for now I don't think it will. But My Dark Vanessa, I just randomly picked this book up off of Amazon because I had heard, gosh, what is her channel name? Throne of Pages. I was watching a video of hers, and she was saying that this was one of her favorite books, and that it was at the same time very sad and just like such a heart-wrenching book. And for me, when I hear that, I'm like, okay, bring it on. Let's see how much sadness I can take, right? I don't know why I'm like that, but I'm like that, okay? This one, I met my match with this one. You know, with me, that I don't typically look at like trigger warnings or anything, just because that doesn't really doesn't usually affect me. And I just don't really need to like look out for that sort of thing. But with this one, I didn't even like read the synopsis. I just bought it. And when I opened up the box and actually took a look at what the book was about, I was like, oh shoot, we're going there. And I didn't think that I would be like affected. Even still, I knew that it was going to be a very heavy book regardless, just based off of what this is about. But yeah, My Dark Vanessa is exploring the psychological dynamics of the relationship between a precocious yet naive teenage girl and her magnetic and manipulative teacher. So that's what this book is about. As soon as I read that, I was just like, oh, okay. Yeah, okay. This is a dual timeline. We're dealing with a dual timeline in the story. It starts off with the book when Vanessa is like in her mid-30s, and it's like 20 years after the whole thing has taken place, and some new allegations are coming up with Mr. Strain, that teacher, and some other female students. So everything is kind of like resurfacing for Vanessa. And then the other timeline is in 2000. So we kind of start off with the backstory of how Vanessa got to this boarding school that she's at, that she meets her teacher, Mr. Strain, and then just like how everything happened from then. So it feels like things start at like opposite ends, but then they just like slowly, as time passes on this side and time passes on this side, it kind of ends up colliding. And I really enjoyed that dual timeline. I think it was done really well, and it wasn't like confusing or anything. Like, I was very fully invested in both timelines of the story, and I think that they meshed really well together. Yeah, trigger warnings for this book, just look them up, okay? But just like seriously look at these, okay? If you don't think that it's going to affect you like I did, it's going to affect you. Let me just tell you right now, it's going to affect you. I don't care if you think that it won't, if you think you are like made of steel and you can take it like I thought. No, you cannot. I don't want anybody else to go into this underestimating this book, because I massively did. And I had to have some serious prayer time after this book, because it was just so real, okay? And not like, okay, I don't want anybody out there to think like, okay, I went through a similar situation as Vanessa. Absolutely not. Like, that's not the thing. But seeing her perspective, it was so real, and just seeing her just dissect things was just so heavy to read. And I don't know, like, for for Vanessa being the naive teenager that she was, you know, falling for an older guy, just that, being that naive. I was once that girl who thought she was like so mature for her age, right? And that, you know, she could take on the whole world at like 15, no, like 16, 17, and that she was ready for life, you know? But there's still some naivety there. Is that the word, naivety? Is that how you say it? I don't know. You think you know everything, but you just don't. And life can very quickly like just crash over you and just be very real with you. There is a quote in here that I want to read for you, just so that you can kind of get an idea for kind of what goes through Vanessa's head. And I think that it kind of like really sums up just a main thing about this book. Obviously, if you don't want to be like, I feel like this part is pretty obvious just based on what this book is about, even that like tidbit that I read for you. This is a scene towards the end of the book, where Vanessa is talking with her therapist, and she says, I just feel I can't lose the thing I've held on to for so long, you know? I just really need it to be a love story. I really, really need it to be that. Because if it isn't a love story, then what is it? Yeah. You notice how here it says relationship between her and her teacher. It really is that. We have this character trying to deal with her trauma from, you know, girlhood at the end of the day. And her, in the past, her naive self thinking that she truly loved this man, and that it was a love story, that it was this big like romantic thing. In this book, if you don't know, Lolita has a very big part of this story. Like, it's a very big thing and kind of theme that they bring up in this book, which is also just like so messed up in how it's brought up. Yeah, it's just, she's like, I'm trying to just hold on to the fact that it's a love story, because if not, like, what is it? I know what that means, but I can't face that right now. And I think that's all I'm going to say for now on this book. Yeah, just be warned. Do not go into this book underestimating it to see how much sadness and heaviness and messed up things you can take. Just don't play around with that like I have, because then you end up with something like this that just rips you apart and just tears you down, will have you sobbing, staring at the ceiling. Just, yeah. It affected me so much, not because I related to the events in this story. Like, that's not my story, okay? But it affected me so much that it felt so real, just being in Vanessa's head. I didn't enjoy this book, but I got things from it, okay? I see, this is the thing with this book, is and why I can't give it a rating is because I'm like, I don't know if this was a good book or not. Like, it has all the things that would make it a good book, but I just feel like this feels like nonfiction to me, and I don't write nonfiction. It just feels kind of weird to me. So anyway, this book, My Dark Vanessa, if you've read this book and you know what I'm talking about, definitely let me know in the comments, because I need people to talk about this book with, because it's a lot to handle for my little 21-year-old brain. So yeah, My Dark Vanessa. Next one, you already know what this is, okay? And if you don't, now you do. The Hunger Games. It's been like years since I read The Hunger Games, and I was yet again shocked at like how different the book feels from the movies. Like the sort of tension between Katniss and Peeta is a lot different. At least to me, it feels very different. And Peeta's character feels a lot different. Like in the movies, he feels a little bit more like, he's strong for sure, but he feels a little bit more meek and underdog-ish. And in this book, you definitely see that Peeta is strong, like physically and mentally as well. Like he's very observant and he just kind of like catches on to a lot of things. But the ending of this book like kind of made me sad because if you know what happens, I'm sure a lot of you have already known like the Hunger Games and everything. So when he's like, but I didn't know that there was anything to get right, you know, like with the final interview, because they were pretending to be lovers and everything. Of course he knew that there was like a sort of like agenda, but eventually he was like, this is real for me, you know, I don't have to act. Whereas Katniss, we know, has to act. So yeah, it's just kind of interesting to see the differences with one of my absolute favorite series. Lastly, we are almost done. We have a new section in these videos. This is a DNF and unhauling section. So starting with the DNF, which is also going to be unhauled. This is Pretty Girls by Karen Slaughter. This is another book that I heard was like such a good murder mystery and was absolutely haunting and just left people stunned. I was like, okay, let's read it. And I got, let's see, I think, where did I leave off? Right about at the, yeah, right about at the 100-page mark. I just decided to drop it because it was so vulgar, and immediately we were just kind of thrown into a nasty scene, and I was just like, okay, it was skippable, so I was like, okay, let me just move past this and just get on to the next part of the story. But it was just, I ultimately dropped it because it was just so vulgar and just more of that like sexualized stuff just ended up coming up. So I was like, I can't read this. Like it just, it felt icky. And what I ended up doing is I found a kind of like plot summary. I forget what her channel name is, but I used to watch her years ago, and then I found her again when I was trying to look up a plot summary of this book because I wanted to know what happened, but I just didn't feel like sitting through reading all these things. This story, based off what I've got off of that plot summary video, I mean, it was basically like an entire retelling of this entire story. I don't know, it was dumb to me. Like the whole, like what was meant to be the plot twist, I was like, that is so unrealistic. And I don't know, murder mysteries, at least the ones that I tend to read, they feel like very realistic. Like, okay, this could happen in real life, but this just like, this got like the police force and even like the FBI involved in this single guy's like motive, and just, it didn't work for me. I was like, that is so dumb and that would never happen. Like, Lord knows that there are some corrupt things going on, okay, here, but I'm like, to this level, I don't know. I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it, but this just felt like kind of way too outlandish, and it was very like, thank goodness I didn't read it because this is very like graphic on the violence and just, yeah. So I'm glad I dropped reading it, but I did finally end up finding out what happened in this one, and I thought that it was just kind of dumb. And I'm disappointed because I was really looking forward to this one, but yeah, this one is going out. And the second book going out of my library might shock some people, it might offend, not offend, but like disappoint people or whatever. The Crow Prince, I kind of touched on it earlier, but after reading Powerless, I was just like, okay, yeah, that is what I was expecting from the Cruel Prince, and I just don't have that much interest in continuing with the story, so I just decided, you know what, I'm just gonna drop it. Like, I don't feel like picking up the next 2 books. Let me just drop it now. I don't mind doing so. So this one is going out. I'm sorry to those of you who love this, but I just didn't. And that is it. That was so long. Even now I'm like, it's been 2 hours. Wow. I talked way too much. My throat hurts. I need to go get a drink and clean up this whole mess that I created because it's overwhelming me. So anyhow, if you are here, thank you for listening to my ranting, because that was a lot. I know that was a lot for me even. So if you stuck through all of that, I appreciate you. If you did drop a book emoji in the comments so that I know that you are one of the few that stuck through to the very end. So yeah, anyhow, I hope you enjoyed this video, all the rants included, and I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.